Nostalgia Street invites you on a retro ride that's more than just a trip down memory lane.
Uncover life lessons and personal growth stories that stem from our collective past.
So you can live a richer, more connected life today.
Whether you're a 90s kid, an 80s teen, or simply young at heart, you'll find something to relate to in each episode.
Now, here are your hosts, Vince and Jeff. Welcome back to another episode of Nostalgia Street, where we share the stories that shape us. And today, we have an amazing guest, Joe. And Vince, do you have a great question to lead off for Joe today?
Actually, this is a question for both of y'all, because I noticed here that both you, Joe, and you, Jeff, enjoy the band U2.
Yes.
But let's say that we are playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons, and you have to draft the members of U2 as your party. What classes are they, and why?
I never played Dungeons and Dragons, Joe, so you're going to take this one.
Gosh, that's a good one. I don't know, I guess. I would say, Bono would be like a wizard. He's just kind of got that sort of magical presence on the stage, if you will. And I don't know. I suppose, the Edge has got to be like a paladin or some kind of like knight, because the name Edge Sword. I don't know. That's what I'm going with.
All right.
And I guess I don't know. Crapshoot for the rest. I mean, I suppose you need an elf and a dwarf, so we'll throw them in there.
Oh, jeez. All right. Well, we will get back to our guest Joe, as we want to call him today, for the time being. But first off, we want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Forefront Studios. We are here in our new studio space in downtown Sioux Falls. That's important for today's episode. A little hint for those of you who are watching on audio about that voice, Joe, that you may or may not know yet. But we've been here now for almost a month. We've been in business for a little over a couple of years, and we love to help audiences, we love to help the clients with their audiences tell their stories. So let's get back to telling some stories about Joe. So our guest today is the illustrious and well-coiffed, he likes that word, I think, Joe Batcheller, president of downtown Sioux Falls.
Who is not a bachelor.
Machine. Yeah, that's right. Joe Batcheller's not a bachelor.
He's not a bachelor.
So he's off the list. So Joe, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Joe he's got to be one of our favorites. We don't say that lightly, because you're just you bring a fun presence to things.
Fun is just a core value of mine. It's got to be fun, otherwise what's the point?
So what were you like as a 5-year-old?
Oh, gosh.
Would your mother describe you as fun, or would she use other F words?
Yeah. Yes. all of them. I was a handful. Yeah, for sure. I had a big imagination. I think most 5-year-olds do.
Yeah.
What'd you get in trouble for?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. Just breaking stuff and being loud and, my brother and I would get into fights all the time. He was usually picking on me, though. I was the youngest one. So.
Self-defense.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Good defense.
So did you have one? Was that your only family? Just your brother?
Yeah, I have one older brother. He's a little over 2 years older than I am. Okay. So we were close enough, or are close enough in age to be friends, but also it was kind of more of a frenemy kind of thing, where he had his own group of friends, I had my own group, and so. But a lot of fond memories though, growing up with my brother, for sure.
So, what was that one memory that you remember that the two of you got into the most trouble, where it was his fault?
Or you made it look like it was his fault?
Well, I was usually the instigator. This doesn't exactly answer your question, but one of the memories that really sticks out in my mind is my brother and I were eating breakfast at the kitchen table. It was, I don't know, sometime in the summer, and I think there was like a play date that my mom had arranged with a friend of ours who was kind of like right in between us age-wise, eating our cereal. And at the time, I was convinced that I could fly. And so I cracked open the kitchen window, and it was about, half a story above ground. And I decided to demonstrate this to my brother. So I go launching out the kitchen window.
Did you put a cape on at least?
No, I did not.
No cape.
Because my brother was wearing the Superman outfit. He literally was wearing the Superman outfit. And so, you know, as any good older sibling does, you know, they want to come to the rescue. So Paul promptly decided to follow me and jumped up on the windowsill and dove out after me to save me. And the next thing you know, like my mom was like, I don't know, like in her bedroom getting ready, and she hears the doorbell ring and opens the front door, and there's my brother and I standing there just bawling, and my mom is just like, WTF. So that was when we were disabused of the notion that we could fly. So
where did this notion
I don't
enter
know.
your brain?
Did you break anything?
No, but
Oh gosh.
I do remember packing it pretty hard on the ground. I think I just did like a full belly flop from like about 6 feet up, little 5-year-old. Yeah, I don't know. Paul had a Superman costume that he'd like to dress up in, and what was that TV show? Like Real American Hero or something like that.
Yep. Greatest American Hero.
Greatest American Hero. Yeah, I think that was on TV at the time, and I remember there was one episode where he learns how to fly. You just got to take 3 steps and put your arm up in the air and jump. And so I was like, oh, that's all you got to do. So that's what I was doing. And thankfully, I did not jump off of anything higher than a 6-foot windowsill.
So you're the reason there's disclaimers on that say paid actors, professionals only. This is not recommended to be recreated.
Jackass. You don't do this at home.
Yeah, exactly.
That's you.
Yeah. I could have given Johnny Knoxville a run for his money.
That's a challenge.
So what were some of the games that that you played, you know, whether board games, arcade games? What were some of those that kind of held your attention?
We had a Atari 1600. I think
2600.
or whatever the first one was.
Yeah,
2600.
Yep.
And so it was, I don't know, like really bad version of Pac-Man that was on
really
that.
bad.
And I think Pitfall was another game on there.
Yep.
Of course, Pong and Combat and those.
Yeah.
Did you guys know that originally Pac-Man was supposed to be called Fac-Man with an F?
Yeah.
But they changed it to a P.
No, I didn't know that.
I just heard that. I cannot remember. But yeah, they were afraid that it was going to get mixed up. You know, somebody might mispronounce it.
I can see that. Fact-Man.
Yeah, so Atari was, you know, we were a hit in the neighborhood. All the kids wanted to come over and play our Atari, and gaming systems advanced since then, and we never upgraded ours. My parents were like, you got that one. That one's good enough. You know, but so arcades, you know, we sort of grew up at the time when it was sort of the golden years of arcades, really. You know, before Gigglebees got converted, that was a spot we would go. Before that, I think it was Piccadilly Circus and Grandma's before that. But, you know, the best was to get dropped off with like $10 in quarters, and you could just spend a Saturday afternoon there.
Oh, yeah.
Usually, I mean, sometimes I would get I'd lose all my money quickly. Yeah, so that was a fond memory for sure. Board games, you know, I think we, you know, Clue, Monopoly, those were some good go-tos. There were some older kids in the neighborhood that we would go and hang out and play their board games. Sorry was one that we'd play all the time. And that game just was so like just irritating. It's like you can get so close to winning and then it's like can just all evaporate right before your
sorry
eyes.
player right over here.
Just play everyone else against each other. But what was the most cutthroat game you guys were playing?
Most cutthroat. Gosh, you know, usually it was like some game that my brother and I would make up. Like we're like hanging out in the bathroom, like throwing G.I. Joe guys up onto the wall, and you got to get them behind the towel rack, and that counts as a basket. Like doing stupid stuff like that. That's usually what it would be.
I don't know what it is, but like I was listening to the Kelsey brothers, the New Heights podcast, and I mean I say this is true. the spouses, I think it's usually the brothers, they're the best at coming up with the stupidest games, but they're the best games because you made them up yourself. And it's just crazy, guys that have that ability.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure the girls do too. We have to have a few on to do that. So Monopoly, there we go. We should have like a little bell that plays. This is
The sixth mention of Monopoly.
Yeah.
Monopoly was just that go-to game that a lot of people mentions,
Yeah.
unless they run out of others that they can't think of.
One that was really fun that we like to do with all the neighborhood kids is Ditch 'em. I don't know if you ever played that at all.
Ditch 'em.
Basically, it's team hide and go seek.
Okay.
And so we would have like sometimes as many as like 15 kids playing. And, usually we're like using the whole neighborhood as like the boundary. So like, we're cutting across people's yards and, neighbors that have no idea what's going on. There's just like kids running around. And, but yeah, we'd have some pretty epic ditch 'em battles. It was kind of like Ghost in the Graveyard, if you remember that one at all.
Yeah.
In the summertime growing up, it was like mom would be like, get out of the house. And, you would come home for dinner and go back out again. And, when the street lights would come on, that was when it was time to come home.
Speaking of Ghosts in the Graveyard, were there any like haunted or abandoned homes or whatever around where you were growing up and you dared other kids to kind of go in there? Like everyone's got like that neighborhood kind of like that space you just don't go because there's always stories about it.
Yeah, there weren't too many like haunted houses necessarily. We grew up on Vista Lane, which is by 57th in Minnesota, and that was the edge of town. And I remember like Minnesota Avenue. So it was mostly newer houses at the time, but there were some homes where it was maybe like a elderly couple that lived there or something like that, and it's like, oh, don't bother old man Foster, he'll come out and chase you down, sort of thing. And so that was kind of the forbidden zone, I suppose. Was those kinds of houses. Yeah,
Old man Foster. Everybody had an old man Foster.
Would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling kids. That's kind of like what we had conjured up in our minds. It was like some nefarious old man like kidnapping children or something.
Maybe he did.
Yeah, which Scooby-Doo character are you?
Scooby-Doo character, gosh, I don't know. I suppose sometimes Fred, sometimes Shaggy, I suppose. It just depends on the day. During the week, I'm Fred. During the weekends, I'm Shaggy. I just, like on the weekends, I'm like checked out from work. I just want to like sit on the couch and, hang out with my boys, watch a movie, that sort of thing. Be lazy like Shaggy. But it's all, it's all business during the week. So that's why I'd say I'm Fred during the week. Sans neckerchief.
Well, you usually wear a scarf when you're walking around downtown anyway. So, I mean, that's your
in the
neckerchief.
wintertime. Yeah,
that's your neckerchief.
Yeah. There you go.
So Daphne, she was a hottie, right?
Sure.
As far as cartoons go.
Yeah, I mean, like, when you're young, I mean, that's, I think for a lot of young boys, that might have been their first crush was Daphne from Scooby-Doo.
It was Daphne from Scooby-Doo or Marianne from Gilligan's Island.
Yeah. Or Ginger if you were feeling spicy.
So real quick note for our folks who are listening in, our podcast is also available as a video show on YouTube where you'll be able to see some of these characters that these guys are referencing that I don't know.
Yeah, and you'll be able to see Vince's head. Look, what are they talking about? Who's this?
It's Marianne.
Yeah. You never had Gilligan's Island?
I just know the theme song. That's about it.
You want to sing it for us?
I don't remember it.
Okay. No, I remember we watched Gilligan's Island almost every day in elementary school, after school for some reason.
Yeah.
And who knows where those guys are anymore?
They're still on the island.
Half of them are dead, at least.
Did they get off the island?
I think I want to say they did at the very end, but I don't know. I mean, they would show the whole thing and then you'd miss it. Then you have to try to watch it all over again, all the episodes. That's a good thing to Google. I don't know the answer to that. I want to say they did.
I would hope so. Gosh.
Poor people.
How sad would that be if they're still there?
It would be. Maybe that's how Lost.
I was always amazed.
Them.
Like, they would all of a sudden, like, somebody would just show up on the island, like, oh, it's Amelia Earhart.
Yeah.
And then, the whole episode is built around that. And then somehow that person gets off the island, but they're all still stuck there.
True.
It's like, how incompetent do you have to be?
Yeah. And the professor was like MacGyver. I found 2 coconut shells and a spark plug, and now I've got this radio that can reach Honolulu. I was like, what? And wasn't it Marianne that always made the coconut pies?
I don't remember. That sounds
I think she did.
very much like Marianne, though. Yeah.
Marianne
This is
is.
above my
Marianne
pay
is-
grade here.
So how old was young Joe Batcheller when he first said, I think I'm interested in a little lady?
I think I had my first girlfriend when I was in first grade, maybe kindergarten.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Young.
Well, one of my friends, there was, there were like 2 really cute girls in kindergarten that I remember that the boys were kind of like positioning for. And one of my friends brought in like a 5-pound bag of candy and was like, here you go. And then, they were boyfriend and girlfriend for the rest of the year. I guess that's all you had to do. And so,
Wow.
Not nearly as easy nowadays.
no. So, yeah, I think the following year I pulled the same move, and and that's all I had to do, and she was my girlfriend for the rest of grade school, basically, and like it was just like holding hands at recess.
Yeah.
It was like real controversial stuff.
And now she weighs 450 pounds. She's on Weight Watchers because Joe got her started on candy bars.
Hopefully she's diabetes free.
So what about when did the love of music and musical groups, how old would you say when you were beginning your playlist?
Probably like 9, 10, around 83, 84. Up until that point, it was just listening to whatever top 40 was on the radio. And my cousins from California came and visited, and they made some mixtapes for my brother and I, and it was like all punk and
Scandalous.
new wave, and
Yeah,
so Clash, Sex Pistols, bands like that. And that just absolutely blew me away. I was like, I didn't even know that music like that even existed.
Yeah.
And so from that point on, I'm like, okay, I need to do a better job of discovering what is out there for music. And I guess from that point on, the malls were a big thing. So we go to, what was it? I'm trying to remember what the music store was out at the Empire Mall. I think there were a couple.
Was
but
it Sam Goody's?
I think like later on it became Sam Goody's. It wasn't Tower Records, but anyways, I would just search everything that was in there. And that was kind of like one of the things. You go to the mall on the weekend and you come home with a tape or, later on a CD. And so it's like, you've got so much money to spend. So like which band's going to be the one you dive into for this week. And so that was always kind of fun to go there and just explore what they had available. And
Did you make your own mixtapes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you give them out?
Oh yeah, I mean that was the move. Like when you wanted to let a girl that if you wanted to let a girl know that you liked her, like you made a special mixtape for her.
You dropped the candy and you hit the play.
Yeah, that's right.
Somehow a Spotify playlist doesn't hit the same.
No.
That's cheap. So who was the group that you subscribed to the most, that you just listened to the most or followed through the years?
I kind of went through a big classic rock phase.
Okay.
And it was probably Jimi Hendrix that I first got into.
Okay.
And from there, Led Zeppelin, and then Pink Floyd. Those were 3 pretty consistent ones. The Doors as well. I would say sort of that 6th to 9th grade, 10th grade kind of time frame was when I was really in my classic rock phase. And then because I was so bored with the hair bands that were on MTV, it was just like felt so staged and produced and just inauthentic, and
there were a lot of those back then.
Oh yeah. And then once Nirvana came on the scene, then my musical taste really evolved from classic rock into grunge and, going back to some of my punk roots, I guess. Getting into Beastie Boys were kind of always one too that was sort of in the background. It wasn't like my favorite band, but I'd say I got into them a lot more so in the 90s, and Green Day. I love the music from the 90s. Like that, to me, I think that is the best musical decade.
Interesting. All right.
What was your first or favorite concert?
I think my first concert was Metallica at the old arena. The Cult opened up for them. It was Cult. I'm trying to think what album it was that they... And Justice for All. And Justice for All album. They were touring that, and think I was maybe like, I don't know, freshman in high school, something like that.
Did you have to sneak out of the house to go see that?
No, I mean, my parents had no idea.
They didn't love you that much.
That's a good way of putting it.
Oh gosh, get out of here! Yeah, that was probably my most memorable concert. One of the first concerts that I went to. And I don't know. Aside from that, I don't know if I do remember my first concert. It was the Doobie Brothers. My parents took me to that. That was at the arena. And my dad is probably the best napper in the world. And who's the guy that started Napster? My dad would give him a run for his money. He took a nap at the Doobie Brothers concert.
Guy who started Napster.
He got stoned. It's the Doobie Brothers.
Whoa.
We'll be right back.
Now, Vince and I were talking a few weeks back, now that like Metallica is on this new tour, and you watch the newer YouTube videos of them, and like I knew of them, I wasn't really into them, but now that I go back and I look at some of the stuff, even the stuff that they played back when I was a kid, I mean, they are so musically gifted, in my opinion. I mean, Lars Ulrich, their drummer, he's at a different level when it comes to playing the drums. And I'm not a drummer, but the way that the beats change, the tempo changes on some of the stuff. And now I know why the bass player is usually hanging out by the drummer in case they get off beat or whatever. They're making sure that guy's keeping time for them. It's a whole new appreciation for music with those guys.
Yeah, it's interesting to see them playing now as like they're older than my parents were when I first got into them. They're, James Hetfield's, I think he's almost as gray as I am. But yeah, they are amazing musicians. And I definitely went through a Metallica phase as well. I wouldn't really consider myself a metalhead, but every once in a while it's like, you want that, you want to feel that energy, so.
So are there any things that you can remember doing, and at the time you thought maybe you were the only one, but then you talk to other people that are your same age and you find out, other people probably did that too?
Well, prank calls were kind of one of those things that we
we're
used to
going
do.
there. All right.
Can you give us your best one?
Well, most of the ones I wouldn't say are really PC anymore. So the one of my favorite moves though was to do the reverse prank call. And when somebody would call me, be like, "Pro Audio, this is Dave," or something like that, and they're like, "I think I've got the wrong number," and you're like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" You recognize the voice or whatever. Yeah. throw somebody for a loop like that. I did that to my grandfather one time without, obviously, before caller ID, without knowing who it was. And he was, he's like this grizzled war veteran who just, his, he's got a hair trigger on his BS meter. And so I pulled that move and he's like, "Put your mom on the phone, you knucklehead." there's no fooling him. So
he knows you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, but all the other prank calls that we used to do were just, I'm not particularly proud of that, but it was just something that, I know kids back then, we all had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So was there ever a moment in your developmental period, whatever you wanted to find that as, teen, younger, whatever, where you did something and you realize, oh man, I messed up and I feel kind of bad about this?
Mm-hmm. This is a theme of Vince's. He likes to ask people questions of regret.
You gotta have some. You gotta have a little bit of. You gotta have a little bit of salt with the sweet memories too. We've had people talk about like pushing their siblings, or one gal stole someone's boyfriend. Like,
yeah. The one that pops to mind is when I consumed some alcohol in copious amounts for the first time. I was not 21 yet. And I fell into the wrong crowd. Yeah. I don't know what happened. Yeah. It was, I was actually in junior high at the time. And a friend's older brother was having a keg party and invited me to go. And I don't know, I probably had like 2 beers, and then I took a long nap, and I ended up, I rode my bike there and ended up waking up the next day and riding my bike home. And the great thing was they had the bike trails. So like, it was like a direct route, super safe. And I think it was, I don't know, probably like 6 or 7 in the morning when I rode my bike home, and there's my dad waiting on the couch for me. "So where have you been?" I'm like, "I had a sleepover last night." And he's like smelling me. And he's like, "You kind of smell like beer." And, it's like, there was no fooling him. I was just like, I knew I was busted. And it was kind of one of those things where, like I've seen up till that point, I'd seen my dad mad before, but he was disappointed. There's a difference. When they're disappointed, it's like you've really let them down. And that's when I knew I messed up.
Yikes.
Disappointment dads are scary.
Yeah.
In a different way.
Yeah. It's like, I think it's understandable that sometimes people get mad, but it's like when someone's disappointed, it's like the respect level has dropped a notch, and it's like you got to work to get that back, So
Have you ever had to pull disappointment dad on your kids?
No, not yet.
There you go.
Not yet. I've got really good boys. I mean, they're a handful. They're a lot of fun. But hopefully I won't have to pull disappointment dad on them.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully not. So as you got into your teen and your college years, post-adolescent-ish, when were you around adults or teachers or whatnot that started to really make an impact on how you thought? And were there any lessons learned that you've kind of kept inside of your head?
Yeah, I think, when I was growing up, there were, my parents were pretty sociable and, had a pretty big social circle. And so I got to hang out with, a lot of guys that were a few years older than me, a few years older than my brother even. And it's like, you almost need like someone that much older to sort of provide a little bit of objectivity in a way. The two that come to mind are guy by the name of Pat Hughes and another guy by the name of Tom Taylor. And it's just like you saw how other guys would treated them with respect. Yeah. And they just were good role models. You know, like Pat was this guy, or is this guy who's just fun guy to be around, you know, makes other people that he's with feel good. And Tom is a guy who is very just driven. He gets stuff done. You know, he's this guy that was a very accomplished athlete in high school, you know, and he was just religious about working out and took care of himself and just had good mental discipline. And so, you know, from those two guys, sort of modeled that behavior of like how to treat other people and how to hold yourself accountable. Yeah. So those would be two that I would hold up as role models, mentors, if you will. In high school, you know, I had algebra teacher who was also my soccer coach, and his name is Steve Cornish, and just a really interesting guy. I don't know if he ever played in the Premier League, but he was a very accomplished soccer player. But besides that, just brilliant with math. He was a drama teacher. And then, you know, while at high school, he was like, I'm going to learn how to play the guitar. And, you know, next thing you know, he's like playing every single Eric Clapton song there is. And so just kind of had that growth mindset and sort of taught me that not to be one dimensional, I guess, to have other interests. And but he was a great coach as well. He knew when to build you up and maybe when to knock you down a level if you're getting a little too big for your britches. And Steve was another great mentor. It's been fun getting to know my dad's friends as adults, and they can be great to talk to if ever I have any questions about, you know, leadership. You know, some of these guys have run companies, have led teams, and, you know, I can always go to my dad for that too, but it's also nice to go outside of my family to get some objective advice as well. Sure. And had some great teachers in college too. My advisor when I got my master's in urban planning, this guy by the name of Scott Polans, and he really taught me how to write, like how to take a complex idea and turn it into, you know, one distilled sentence just to like hammer the point home, and taught me how to think about problems and, you know, research problems, really, things like that.
So you've been pretty fortunate. It sounds like a lot of people will say I had one or two folks, but it feels like I'm putting myself in little Joe Batcheller's head a little bit as you were talking, and it seems like you were looking, and it feels good that, like, as I'm inside your head a little bit, that you had those role models, but it's like you were really looking at those individuals, and it's got to make the people that you mentioned to feel good that you were looking up to them. And I can't help but wonder how many people do we all look up to? We just don't always have the chance to tell them that, you know, I was watching you a lot more than you think, and I'm grateful that you had great character, because if you didn't, I might not be the person who I am today. So I don't know. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have been very blessed in that regard. You know, I think that that's something where you get asked who are your mentors, and it's like a lot of people. Yeah. I'm
You're
just
like, take a seat.
What's that?
You're like, take a seat.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So yeah, it's been great. I've had a lot of great teachers too. Too many to mention here, but you know, met some great professors at USF as well. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Carolyn Schuler. She was fantastic too. But yeah, it's wonderful to be able to think back on that and just what those interactions were like and what I was able to glean from that and how it helped me grow as a person, because a lot of people are have really helped me become the person that I am today.
Yeah. So let's real quickly talk about the person that you are today. So how long have you been in the role with DTSF, and what led you to that?
I started July of 2015.
Okay.
So a little over 8 years. What led me to that? A lot of things. I mean, the most immediate thing prior, I was living in Vail, Colorado with my wife.
Oh, wow.
Worked for the town as a planner in their community development department. And my wife was working for Vail Health. And Vail's great, but high cost of living.
Yeah.
The margin for discretionary income was not as high as some people might expect.
Right.
Of course, you know, great recreational amenities and so on, but our boys were, I think, 2 and 5 at the time, and we felt like we were at a crossroads where it was a question of what sort of childhood do we want our kids to have. They, I'm sure, would have had a great childhood in Vail, but we wanted to be closer to family.
Yeah.
And so my parents live here. My wife's parents live here. All of our brothers and sisters, all of their cousins. And so we started thinking about moving back to Sioux Falls, probably 2014.
Okay.
And this opportunity with Downtown Sioux Falls came along. I had actually applied for the job with Downtown Sioux Falls back in, I think it was 2010 at the time. And I was still a little green. I just finished grad school and didn't have the relevant work experience at that time.
Yeah.
So it sort of allowed me the opportunity to get that experience. And Town of Vail was great. It was great working there. I felt that my potential with the Town of Vail was sort of limited, and I wanted a new challenge. I wanted to see, you know, how far I could go, and working for Downtown Sioux Falls really seemed like the best course for me to explore that. And I had a strong connection with downtown for a long time. My dad, he ran Zip Feed Mills for many years, so I grew up coming downtown.
Yeah.
You know, from early on as a child. You know, I remember when the pedestrian mall was still going down Phillips Avenue. A lot of fond memories. I've seen downtown evolve over several decades, and so I've had a lot of ideas about like how downtown can grow and develop, and it's been really fun to see some of that, and then to be part of that since joining Downtown Sioux Falls Incorporated. So
What's been your biggest challenge since you took over? We want to know all your haters by first name. No,
Well,
just
and real
joking.
quick, for our listeners who may not know what Downtown Sioux Falls Incorporated is, could you just give us a little bit about that?
So Downtown Sioux Falls Incorporated is a business membership organization, and we also administer the Business Improvement District. So 2 different funding sources, but similar purposes. The business membership organization really helps with getting people into businesses, helping businesses thrive in downtown. So we put on a lot of promotions, a lot of different events as well. We've got Parade of Lights coming up, and then we'll have Burger Battle, and every month there's something going on as far as that goes. So in terms of the Business Improvement District, that is supported by the property owners, and that helps keep downtown clean, beautiful, and safe. We do some outreach efforts. We have a street team, but making sure that downtown is clean, safe, beautiful, and fun, really.
Yeah, yeah. So I remember when I moved here in '97, I think, and there was a period of time where it felt like the downtown area was just really, it kind of caved to the pressures of like Empire Mall, as an example. There just wasn't a lot going on. I don't think people had a ton of reasons to go downtown. And I don't know when it happened, but I'd say like within the last 10 years, that's where you felt like downtown.
2015, probably.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But
I wonder why.
But you can tell, like there's just a vibe about downtown, and you do see the street team kind of keeping places cleaned up, and you got one gentleman that kind of helps with the behavioral health side. Is that fair to say?
Ambassador.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have a few ambassadors now, and they will check in on people.
Yeah.
Usually, if it seems like somebody needs checking in on. So
Sure.
if somebody's might be laying down on a bench, making sure that they're okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're and then connecting them. Maybe they need to go to the Link, the triage center, to spend some time. They might need to sober up. They might have a mental health issue.
Right.
They might need to get connected with the banquet for a hot meal or
Or could
a
be-
shelter.
Or could be Vince after this previous night.
Yeah, he's probably who we get the most calls on. So, but whatever. We got him a frequent flyer
Why am I in
card.
the middle?
This
isn't even
why.
fair.
This is why you're in the middle.
So you have a passion for urban planning and downtown organizations, but what did you want to be when you were a kid? And did it line up? Like,
Yeah, I guess probably from an early age, I was really interested in being an architect, which is kind of
all right.
related.
yeah, that's
I'd had that thought for a while. I went to a community input meeting. It was the school district, actually, at what's now the Washington Pavilion. It was Washington High School, and they're trying to figure out what to do, how Sioux Falls, where and how Sioux Falls should develop a third high school. And I think I was, I don't know, early, like a tween or something like that. And just got me thinking about like, they're planning, 15, 20 years out. Well, I guess it would have been 10 years out, but taking the long view, like that just kind of blew my mind. Cause like when you're 12 years old, all you can really think about is, the next day or maybe the next
Summer
week.
break.
Right. Yeah. Summer break.
next
Exactly.
Star Wars movie.
That's about as long-term planning as it gets when you're 12.
Yeah.
So that sort of exposed my my worldview, at least locally, about how Sioux Falls is going to change, and started piquing my interest. So that idea of being an architect kind of evolved into becoming some architects might say it devolved into becoming a city planner. But I would say what I do now is it's not really either city planning or architecture, but it is very much concerned with the future of downtown. And so being able to be a part of shaping that future is, I mean, I can't think of anything better, more well suited for me. So I love it.
So what do you see with the Sioux Steel District and the Sharapa numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8?
11.
What does the downtown? I don't know if you have any statistics that you may know, or what are some of those projections on what that's going to do to downtown and to Sioux Falls?
So we will have in 3 to 5 years, probably 1 to 1,500 more people living downtown.
Okay.
So that means that the retail scene is going to change. You're going to have more of a market to help support that. There's going to be a lot more activity downtown, and it's pretty exciting to think about. I think what that's going to do is also create more demand for developments like that. We're not going to get developments necessarily on that kind of scale. There's a few sites downtown where we will see developments on that scale, but there's not many places left like that. You'll see a lot of infill development. So what that means is like some of these parking lots might see a high rise on them.
Yeah.
I use that term high rise loosely because we can only build up so high here in Sioux Falls for two reasons: the flight path for the airport and just market demands.
Sure.
We're not going to have, you know, a 50-story skyscraper downtown or anything like that. But there is a lot of opportunity for development in downtown. So I think it's going to really create a flywheel effect. And as more people come downtown, as more businesses locate downtown, it's just going to create more and more demand. Yeah.
It's exciting to see, since, I mean, our previous studio was right over there by the Sioux Steel District, and it was interesting to watch all of that and how quickly that stuff comes
Yeah,
up
we went from uptowners to downtownies, legitimate downtownies.
since our new spot.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you've got a skyline that's just full of cranes, you know, that's some pretty cool development that you've got to look forward to in the future.
Yeah, for sure. You know, things are changing when you see that many cranes in the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
So where do you see the future going for downtown Sioux Falls?
In terms of the district or the organization?
Yeah, the organization.
So I think that we'll see the ambassador program continue to grow. I'd like to see, you know, a dozen ambassadors on staff. I think that, you know, the demand isn't quite there yet, but as downtown fills in, there will be. And I would imagine, you know, probably be looking back 10 years from now, listening to this podcast, just laughing, and we're like, ha, a dozen. We need like 2 or 3 dozen now.
That'd be great.
But you know, the ambassadors are great in terms of making downtown a more welcoming, friendly place to be. They're kind of the in-person, I don't know, sort of concierge marketing side of the district in a lot of ways. Yeah. So that's important, but there's also things that the office staff does in terms of programming, events, and marketing. We really want to see the marketing efforts be able to amplify. You know, when you do a budget, it seems like marketing dollars are kind of the softest target out there. So it'd be nice to really invest in that. You know, there are some economic development efforts as well that I'd like to see DTSF be able to play more of a leadership role in, and particularly developing a retail strategy for downtown. Mm-hmm. You know, we've been able to support retail in good fashion for decades now, but I think that we need to get a little bit more sophisticated with how we support retail moving forward. You know, it used to be, you know, 20 years ago, retail was kind of seen sometimes as, at least in downtown, not necessarily a legitimate profession. I think some would say there's some people who are maybe doing it to get out of the house as a hobby type of thing, but we've got some pros here in downtown that are setting the example for how to do it right in Sioux Falls. We've got so many retail businesses that have really cast a die of like what best practices look like in terms of retail. And so I'd like to try to facilitate that further, make sure that we got the right mix of retail, and then continue to really develop locally owned retail. To do that, you need some anchor institutions as well, some anchor stores, if you will. And so I think balancing the mix between regional and national retailers and local is going to be, it's going to be important to figure out how to do that without national or regional kind of overtaking the locally owned retail scene.
So before we went on the air, you were sharing with us this revolutionary new idea of this aerial dome that's going to protect downtown from the really hot summers. Can you tell us more about that?
Well,
especially on Riverfest days?
Yeah, so I watched the Simpsons movie and the light bulb sparked. And I figured, you know, we're going to do that, and then we'll get a monorail going in there as well.
Nice.
And it's going to be fantastic.
So for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, it was 97 degrees
Our camera's overheated.
for most of the Riverfest, which is a annual occurrence, happens downtown all day. Well, kind of 4 to midnight ish, kind of, and it was hot, and I can still see Joe in his beachcomber's hat tending to this and tending to that. We were all sweated. We lost 10 pounds that
There were
day.
no pee breaks because we didn't have anything.
You didn't have, you didn't have to go at all.
Right. I know. We could have saved money on all those porta potties that we rented.
That was brutal.
It was oppressively hot that day.
So one thing we like to do in our show is we like to bridge the past and the present. So is there a lesson that you kind of still hold close to your heart, and has that kind of helped guide the way that you work today, whether it's your interactions with other people or how you lead DTSF or etc.?
I would say grit, perseverance, really. So I went to high school for a couple of years at Shattuck St. Mary's in Faribault, Minnesota. And I think when my brother went there a year ahead of me, and I went and visited him, and I saw this precision drill team perform, and it just absolutely blew my mind. I mean, just everything was in perfect unison. It was like clockwork. And I knew when I saw that, I wanted to go to Shattuck, and I wanted to be on the crack squad. And it was, 5-week tryout period. It was grueling. It was one of the most challenging things that I did. I think I was 15, maybe 16 at the time. I think I was 16 when I tried out. And that taught me the importance of discipline, of practice, of just knowing that when you want something so badly, you just have to go all in and never give up on that. And that experience was one that gave me the confidence to do a lot of things later in life where maybe I've met a challenge and I've wanted to quit, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking squatties don't quit, and I got to keep pushing forward on this. There's been times when I've veered off course from what may have been my purpose, or what is my purpose, and thinking that I needed to go a different route, and then coming back to it and just remembering like it's never too late. You can get back into this. And there's a time there where in the early mid 90s, I was taking classes for drafting, and I was going to go to school for urban planning, and I got off track, and then I came back to that probably about 8-9 years later, and I wish that I hadn't had that detour, but I knew that was really where my heart was, where my talents lied. And so, it's, just knowing what your purpose is, what your vision is, and just never giving up.
Get after it. That's good. I like that. That's good. Well, we appreciate you taking time on your busy schedule to jump on here and reminisce with us and give us the lowdown on how horrible your brother was to you as a young child. I think visions of Joe jumping out of that window will forever be etched in my brain. Just thinking you're lucky you didn't land on something besides the ground.
His belly flopped.
Yeah.
It's like a border steak or something.
Right.
Would have made a great movie, but not for your mom, I'm sure.
No.
But yeah, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, this has been fun.
Well, viewers and listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, stay engaged, stay curious, and we'll see you on Nostalgia Street. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. If you're on iTunes, please take a moment and leave us a rating and review.
Head on over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. You'll get access to engaging visuals that complement our podcast content.
Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to having you with us on our next episode. So until next time, listeners, stay curious, stay engaged,
And never stop walking down Nostalgia Street.